Good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you are. This is John Paul Rye, and I'm coming to you from Tokyo, Japan. Today, I want to feature opinion on my channel. This is a clip that we sent into Mad Talk TV for a collab a couple of months ago. It's from my continuing series, What Does Star Wars Mean to You? If you're familiar with it, I've had Ivan Ortega, John Talks, Carbonite Chat, and a few others. And Opinion was also in the series, so I want to feature him. And let's first hear what he has to say about Star Wars and get right into it.
I guess trying to pin down one all-encompassing meaning that Star Wars has for me is probably about as elusive as figuring out how many sand people are traveling single file across the desert. So instead, if you'll indulge me, let me tell you what it's meant to me at different points in my life. I was the consummate 80s kid. Divorced parents, all my older siblings had already left the house, so movies were a huge escape for me. In 1980, my dad took me to see Empire Strikes Back on opening weekend, and we went to this big, beautiful theater that had golden curtains that remained closed until the movie started. There are also beams of light that shot across the curtains, and I asked my dad, "What are those?" I remember him saying in his native New York accent, "Those are the spaceships getting ready for the movie." Pretty far into the film, my dad let his native New Yorker out again. During the scene when Vader reveals his big secret to Luke, my dad sat straight up in his theater seat and said audibly, "What? You gotta be kidding me." We talked about whether or not we really thought it was true all the way home. So in that moment, I guess Star Wars meant that my father and I had something to discuss, debate, and bond over like buddies. Once Star Wars came on the scene, I was a slobbering fool for anything related to that movie, especially the toys. As my family was more towards the poor side of the working class at the time, even at an early age, I understood how hard my parents worked just to buy me Star Wars toys, especially my mom, who was a clerk at a grocery store about 7 days a week. Adjusted for inflation, a single Star Wars figure would have cost a working class parent about $8 to $10 in the 80s. That's a lot. As my collection grew, I watched over the weapons of my figures like a fanatical museum curator. When playtime was done, I would make sure each weapon was carefully stowed away as if I was handling precious gems. And I was so fanatical about my figures that I would never have a good guy facing a bad guy in my Darth Vader case. Good guys only face good guys, bad guys only face bad guys, until I was ready to take them out for playtime again. Things were going great until that fateful day I lost the staff of the king of the Ewoks, Chief Chirpa. If you ever had Ewok figures as a kid, then you'll probably know what I'm talking about when I mention that the colors used on these particular figures was all varieties of mundane earth tones. As luck would have it, the color of the gravel in our desert landscaped front yard was almost identical to that of Chief Chirpa's staff. One sunny Sunday afternoon, I was going through the usual routine of matching figure to weapon before putting them away in their case when I noticed it. Chief Chirpa staring at me, his staff nowhere in sight, and his small Ewok eyes staring at me accusingly as if to say, "You know what you did." I had lost a weapon. I desperately searched for the missing accessory until the Arizona sunlight faded, and you could hear parents around the neighborhood calling their kids in to dinner. And I was crushed at the idea that after all my years of carefully looking after my collection, I had at last lost a weapon. For 3 months, the first thing I did upon arriving home from school was visually eyeball the entire yard looking for the lost staff. And then one day, as if it had got up and walked there itself, there it was, laying in the crack of the walkway in the front porch. My screams of joy were so loud that our neighbors, who were Jehovah's Witnesses and not prone to surprises, came running out of their house because they had thought I'd either gotten run over or beat up again by the bully down the street. So at that moment, I guess Star Wars meant that I was devoted. During my years of working for Disneyland in the late 90s, I was really excited to hear about the special editions coming out. Also because, as a performer at Disneyland, I had heard that the Star Wars characters were going to be coming back to the park for a limited amount of time. And that could only mean one thing: I was finally going to get to be a stormtrooper. The day came, the costumes arrived, and sure enough, the Star Wars characters started making appearances in front of Star Tours. One of my friends at the time got scheduled to be an Ewok 5 days a week. 2 of my other buddies got to be stormtroopers 3 days a week. And then upon asking my boss when other shifts were going to become available, I got the crushing news. The maximum stormtrooper height range topped out at a strict 5'11". I stood at a firm and even 6 foot. My dreams crushed, I was still determined. I waited until the costume shop had closed for the evening and snuck into the back to try on an entire stormtrooper costume. And there, to my dismay, I understood why the guidelines for height had been so strictly set. The uniform looked horrible on me. Just 1 inch made a difference, and I resembled not a stormtrooper, but something out of a sci-fi fetish film. So, for the time being, my dreams of playing an iconic Star Wars characters had to be shelved. And what did Star Wars mean for me in that moment? Well, I guess it meant I was a little tall for a stormtrooper. So what does this all add up to? When I really think about it, It means that Star Wars meant a lot of different things at a lot of different times. It meant I was the only kid in junior high who still carried a Star Wars metal lunchbox to school. It means as a kid I had something to look forward to every few years. It means the heroes weren't just on the screen, they were the parents in my house. And it means I brought all my figures with me when I moved cross country to go to college, like some sort of Star Wars Horcrux. It means I get to be the most real, the most dorkiest, the most unapologetic version of me when I geek out with people from all walks of life who I might not have otherwise met. Star Wars means that some of my best memories have a place to live outside of my own brain. And right now in this moment, after sharing some of my stories with you, I guess that means that without Star Wars, I wouldn't have them to tell.
Alright, so I gotta thank Opinion for sending in that clip. I really enjoyed it, and just for the record, I shortened it for the Mad Talk collab because there was a few other people in the collab, and this one is the full clip. I think he mentions the Ewok Chief Chirpa in the clip, which was originally cut out. So, Opinion's been doing some cool stuff over at his channel. He does lots of videos with videos and cool editing and stuff, so you guys be sure to check that out. I'm going to link his channel in the description. And this community is growing little by little. Please click that subscribe button here. Love to hear your thoughts, and I will see you next time.